Oh, so good to see so many smiling faces here this morning. It must be time for New Zealand's biggest small group.
Great to have you in the fold this morning. And we also welcome a special guest today, the Reverend George Penk, to talk about one of his favourite Gospels, the Gospel of Luke. And I understand we're looking in chapter 18 at the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee.
Yeah, morning team. I think this is a really cool, short little story that Jesus tells in Luke 18. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's a story about two men who go to the temple to pray. The Pharisee is proud of the things that he does right, and he thanks God that he is not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. But the tax collector, he stands at a distance. He won't even look up to heaven, but he beats his breast and he says, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And Jesus concludes this story by saying that guy, the tax collector, was the one who went home justified before God, not the Pharisee. And I think this is, I find this quite powerful, this little story, because I think it shows us something really important about the nature and the character of God, and specifically about his character of mercy. So the tax collector, he knew that he didn't compare well to the Pharisee. Like, this guy knew that he didn't measure up, but he asked for mercy. He was trusting in God's character of mercy. And I think there's a lesson for us here. I reckon this is what we should do too.
You know, it's funny. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday about sometimes how we get involved in the games we think we should be playing, the things versus the things that really matter. And you can see from this that both of these guys had this idea that it was all about, my outward performance, the things that I'm doing. And that's the thing that we're really, measuring ourselves against. Whereas Jesus is looking at the same situation saying, you think it's about showing me how well you're performing, but actually it was about being able to be open and transparent and vulnerable about the flaws that we have and walking away justified as a result.
Totally.
I think the key difference between the two perhaps is that the tax collector had humility. And in fact, Jesus wraps up the parable by saying those who exalt themselves will be humbled and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So unlike the Pharisee, the tax collector, he had the humility to recognize that he needed help. He knew his actions didn't measure up well, but he had humility. He recognized that. And it was him. It was the guy who had humility in the story. He was the one who went home justified before God.
And I think that's the thing that we need to take home, the fact that it's before God, because in this parable, you see that the Pharisee is actually elevating himself in that judgment position because he's going, oh, I'm feeling good about myself because I'm not like those sinners or that guy, you know, and he's sort of quantifying everyone and judging people by looking at them and their actions, but not actually allowing God to be in that position of authority, right? And that's challenging because I think there are so many times that we, as Christians in 2024, can look at some of the things that are happening in the world and go, wow, look at those sinners and look at those people bombing those people and look at those people doing those bad things over there, and then realizing that actually that's really dangerous. We are like that Pharisee.
That's challenging, eh? If you think about who you relate to in the parables, and if they show us what God is like, because that's basically the point of the parable, right? They teach us about God and about the ways of his kingdom. And if we put ourselves in that story, who am I? Am I the Pharisee or am I the tax collector? And I know which one of those two I probably want to be.
Well, exactly. I mean, and I think you make a great point there too. How many times we read through the stories in the Bible, and I think we might have brought this up around the three of us before as well. Like you read about the Israelites and you look at their behavior and you look at Moses, and we always think, I'd be like Moses. I wouldn't be like the Israelites in the story. You know, they're the grumbling complainers. I'd be the one who's close to God and whatever. But this story again, especially if you've been a Christian for a while, right? Like, 'cause that's a trap. I know I've found this, that it's one thing maybe when you've only been in the faith for a little while, but it's definitely a danger of walking in the faith for a longer time, that maybe you feel like you've got more of life's minutiae sorted out. You do start adopting this behavior where you can look at somebody else and be like, I'm doing so much better than them, thank goodness. But it's not really our goodness we should be talking about.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Andrew. I mean, I never grumble myself.
Well, this is really interesting, though, because the thing is, we get too comfortable in our own efforts.
Yeah, true.
That we feel like we're justified by our right doings. And ultimately, we're only justified through the finished work of the cross and Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's all it comes down to. And I think it's just a timely reminder to come back to that place where we're groveling, asking for mercy.
Yeah. So what does this mean to you then, George? Because does this mean we're supposed to, see ourselves as the scum of the earth as well? Like, is that the proper lesson to take from this one? We should really think of ourselves as nothing and less than nothing? Or is there a better lesson to take from this story?
Well, I actually read a really cool little commentary from a guy called Dr. John Dixon, who's an Australian theologian. And I like what he said about it because he pointed out that even in the tax collector's shame, he had hope for mercy. So he knew he didn't measure up well. He didn't place any confidence in his own behavior, but he did place all his confidence in God's character of mercy. And so for me, that's the application, really. Look, I know there's some stuff I haven't got right, some stuff I continue to struggle with, but I don't have to place confidence in my own behavior. I can place all my confidence in God's character of mercy. That's what the tax collector did, and that's what I'm going to try and do too.
Well, I think that's a beautiful way to finish, George. So thank you so much for joining us for Small Group today.
Amazing. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss the next video.
We'll see you in the next one.